Mariah Carey, welcome to the Daily Social Distancing Show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I have to say, growing up as one of your fans, I did not think that anything could make me a bigger fan than I already was. But your memoir has the best description I heard from a friend said it the best way. She said, it turns you from a fan into an instant lamb. Because because we've all grown up with Mariah Carey. We've all, like, Mariah Carey has sung the soundtrack to our lives, whether it's falling in love, whether it's having our hearts broken, whether it's celebrating Christmas. You are synonymous with the lives that we've lived. But you take for granted that a lot of people don't know you. And you've written a book now after 30 years in the industry. The first question is, why now? Why would you bear something so vulnerable after all these years of being shielded?
Well, first of all, I've been working on this book for 3 years, solidly for 3 years. And prior to that, I wanted to start working on it when I was pregnant, so like 10 years ago. And I figured, I have the time now, but it really happened the way it was supposed to happen. And I collaborated with Michaela Angela Davis, who's one of my really close friends, and I feel like we get each other on a very specific level and many levels. But it just felt like the right time because it's just happening because it's happening, and it was meant to happen, and it was a cathartic experience. And again, that's why it took so long. I would have liked to have more time, when you're working on something, obviously, and you want to just perfect it, and you don't have the deadlines, and there it is. But the audiobook's been my favorite part of the process because of the weaving in the lyrics and the melodies and stuff like that. So it is a vulnerable place to be, but in a way it's freeing because they have a question, they can just refer to page 123 or whatever, you know what I mean?
For many people, when they read this book, they're going to learn things about Mariah Carey that they never even would have fathomed. Because you popped into so many of our lives as this perfectly manicured human being where everything was in place and everything was perfect in a music video, but you've lived a tough life. You've overcome, you defied the odds. And one of the things that I don't think a lot of people realize about you is you are a master at your craft, not just at singing, but 19 number one hits, and 18 of those were written by yours truly.
Yes, and thank you for acknowledging that. That's been a thing. My true fans know that, and I think that's been why our connection is so strong, and that and other reasons, but because they're relating to the words that are very personal, not necessarily the big songs that most people know, but like the deep cuts and the ones that are featured more prominently in the book, where the lyrics are woven into the story, or you'll go, oh, that's what that meant when she wrote that. Right. So the fans know, but the casual listeners or people that are just like, yeah, I've heard her sing, whatever, they don't know. I don't know that they'll ever know. Maybe if they care to know and they're watching this, they'll pay attention in a different way. But it's been my release. So writing this book and working on the audiobook and weaving like some singing and some music in with the stories, because that's the way it's written, so it was really a great creative experience for me to be able to combine those things that I love so much, and obviously with these very personal stories.
When you look at the stories that you've shared, there's no denying, Mariah, that they're so personal. Some of them are truly, truly, truly heartbreaking, and I felt almost guilty not knowing this about you and claiming to be a fan. You read the stories and you go like, man, I didn't know Mariah was experiencing this. And you just know Mariah Carey through songs or on a meme or just doing a Christmas show. But when we go back to Mariah Carey growing up in her life, you meet a young girl who is in a world where she's told that she doesn't belong. Some people say that she is not black enough. Some people say that she is not white at all. And so she experiences racism specifically growing up as a child. And one of the most painful stories was where you share going to a kid's party where you thought you were going to the party, but all they did was lock you up in a room and start calling you the N-word. That trauma, when you're sharing it, I would love to know, how did you deal with that? And how did you almost, put that in the back of your mind and in your life while you were entertaining the rest of us in the world?
Well, it is one of those things that I really didn't speak about to most people, because in casual conversation or in an interview format where, you know, you got to get to a lot of subjects and you're talking about an album or whatever, most likely, I'm not going to dig into my 12-year-old past and be like, by the way, listen to what happened to me.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I did push that particular incident down to the point where when we were working on the book, I didn't even remember that story until further down the road. Like, it wasn't like, let me tell you this first story. Like, you know, like, I really started a lot with my ancestors and kind of exploring different aspects of what they went through and the diversity there. That's kind of like shocking to most people, because when you see the physical book, the pictures in the book, people get it a little bit more. And I know you understand what I'm saying. It really, you know, it becomes a thing where it's like, oh, and I get it now, but you're like, well, what the hell did you think I was talking about this whole time? But, you know, again, not everybody pays attention. But yes, that was a very harrowing experience. I don't know that I ever felt the need to talk to anybody about it, because I don't feel like I'm the only person in the world that ever went through something traumatic. But that was very specific. And I think the reason why most people wouldn't expect it is because, I don't know, because of the racial ambiguity, because of whatever. But, you know, I didn't always have my hair done and makeup and clothes and nice things, you know. I came from a place where I lived in predominantly white neighborhoods with people that had nice houses. And I'm not even going to say they were predominantly white. They were all white. And, you know, there I was, to most of them, I hate to use this word, but a mongrel. So they, you know, really didn't have a very high opinion of me for that reason.
Well, I think, you know, and that's what I think makes this book so amazing, to be honest, is it really shows us Mariah Carey as a human being. You know, I laughed in the book, and then there are moments where I'm crying. There are moments where I was shocked at how much comedy you have in your life. Like, you're a very funny person. Like, you use humor even in the book to deal with some really sad situations. I can relate to that. But I was just like, have you been hiding Mariah Carey, the comedian, from us? Is there a big part of your life that is either dedicated or soothed by laughter? Because it felt like that in the book.
Absolutely, yes. I definitely go to the place of humor as opposed to like, oh, I'm so sad, I'm crying and depressed. Like, you know, that's why labels on people and, you know, oh, you're this and you're that or whatever. Like, it's hard. You know that it's difficult. I don't have to tell you. But I just mean that, how do I express it? Yeah, I would rather laugh than cry. And so I appreciate, and we were talking about Son of Patricia, and just you as an incredible comedian. And you know, it's such a brilliant person, but also I appreciate stand-up, and I appreciate like watching you and the complexities that you know. I know we're supposed to be talking about my book, but I have to say that I have to say that, or I would be remiss.
It feels like we're getting a lot of Mariah right now, which is great. We're getting the book, we're getting the audio book, and then we're getting something that I think everybody on the planet will be excited by, and that's Rarities. And that is a collection of, you know, whether it's unreleased songs, B-sides, and just, it feels like an extension of the book, because it feels like a raw piece of Mariah Carey, you know, music that we've never heard, expression that we've never seen. You've got an exclusive, you know, you're going to be teaming up with Lauryn Hill, you know, in one of the projects. And that in of itself is just legend plus legend in a time that was where music for many people was golden. Tell me a little bit about Rarities and why you felt that this was the time to put that out and what you're trying to do.
Well, it just so happened that I had, first of all, the synergy with all of this has been, you know, I believe everything happens for a reason. But in the book, I talk about winning my first award when I was 12, a little award in a talent show that my mother had enrolled me in against all adults. And I sang the song Out Here on My Own by Irene Cara. And for a kid, when I listen to it now, I'm like, oh my gosh, I really, really felt this song. Like, it really did feel like I was out there on my own. But we found the recording that I had done. I was going to put it on an album, didn't do it. Anyway, I found it in my vault. And so that's on the rarities. And then I happened to have a song called Lullaby of Birdland. I was telling a story about this song that I used to sing as a little kid. And then we found this recording, and that's also on the rarities. So there's so many, like you said, B-sides, unreleased songs. But the fact that these things happen at the same time is just another thing that blows my mind about life.
You've lived 1,000 lives, Mariah Carey. I think a lot of human beings will enjoy this book because it is a human story. I think a lot of mothers and daughters will love this book because it talks about those connections and how important they need to be, how important they are, how much they need to be cherished. I think any child, any parent, I think any lover of music, any Black person, any person who struggled with identity, regardless of their race, will love this book. And before I let you go, I could talk to you forever on all of these things, but I guess that's why you have the book. Before I let you go, I would love to talk to you about the song that has become the definition of Christmas. It's pretty insane to have a song that is almost as famous as the holiday itself. I really wondered this question as an entertainer. We all hear that song and we're like, it's Christmas time. Do you hear that song and go, oh no, people are going to want me to sing it? Or do you still have as much joy from that song as we have?
It's interesting because I know it gets played a lot and there's all different things, but it's the first Christmas song I ever wrote. I talk about in the book how certain people in my family ruined Christmas every year, and I always looked forward to it, and I always just wanted to have the most festive, fun holiday, and it just represented so much for me, and they always screwed it up. And as an adult, I was able to kind of recreate what that represented. And so to have a song that I do get to hear every year, I have 3 Christmas albums.
Right.
I'm festive. Like, I push through sadness with being festive. And so, like, anybody who ever tries to ruin Christmas for me will not be a happy person hanging out with me on Christmas. So the answer is, I'm very thankful that I was able to write the song. And I do still love it. I do still love it because it makes me feel like the holidays are here, and that's my favorite time of year. So call me festive.
Festive Mariah Carey. Thank you so much for joining me on the show. I hope you'll join me again. I hope everybody reads the book to get whatever they need from it, whether it's the joy of hearing you break down your music as a master craftsman, whether it's sharing your experiences. I feel like the book is a love letter to Black women from all walks of life in every industry, whether it's private or whether it's in the music industry. I feel like it's a touching tale, and honestly, it's one of the most vulnerable, beautiful stories I've read. So thank you so much for sharing it with us. Thank you for joining me on the show.
Thank you so much, Trevor. I adore you, and I really would love to come back and talk to you at any time, any COVID, what do we call this one?
When we're not socially distanced. Yes, I agree, definitely.
Yes. Thank you so much, and you're incredible.
Thank you very much.